Good morning, everyone, and thank you for making it to this session, which is shaping regional solutions to fuel poverty. Now, I think the first thing you'll notice is that I am not as advertised. Unfortunately, I'm not Laura Beasley. Laura lost her voice earlier in the week and hasn't quite recovered yet. It was ever so close this morning, but unfortunately, her voice is just still lost. It says here that I'm Regional Development Manager, but I'm not. I'm the head of Policy and Public Affairs at NEA, and it's an absolute pleasure to chair this session, where we're going to be thinking about combined mayoral strategic authorities and how, across the regions, the role they're playing in our fight against fuel poverty. They are positioned at the intersection of local knowledge and strategic influence. They've got great power to convene and a broad range of stakeholders across their geographical footprint. That unique convening power allows combined authorities to take a place-based approach, focusing time and resource on the most pressing issues for their region and their people. And there's no doubt that that is part of the reason why in the Warm Homes Plan, it's pretty clear that there's a focus on local authorities, combined authorities, and their strategic mayoral authorities. There's different focuses across those authorities as well. Some are very focused on improving housing quality, some very focused on tackling health inequalities, especially those exacerbated by cold homes, some about jobs and delivering retrofit programs at scale, and some responding to growing child poverty in the region. Combined authorities are working across their local systems with local councils, housing associations, and private landlords, primary and secondary health services, energy networks, and the VCSE sector. And it's set to grow. This role that combined authorities and mayoral authorities will grow as we move into the future. As government continues to deliver on its commitment for greater levels of devolution with new mayoral authorities, integrated settlements, simpler, more flexible funding models, the capacity of combined authorities to act with autonomy and purpose for fuel poverty will need to increase, and it will. While the role of combined authorities will develop, they will be doing so in a changing landscape. We've got local government reorganisation, an evolving health landscape underpinned by three key shifts, from treatment to prevention, hospital to community, and analogue to digital, and a number of central government commitments to respond to pressing issues, including the fuel poverty strategy and the child poverty strategy. Now, that evolution means that combined authorities will continue to play a significant and long-term role in tackling fuel poverty, driving local innovation and ensuring the transition to a fairer, sustainable energy future for every household. So I've got three panelists up on stage with us today. I've got Andy Clark, who's the business leader for Place at the Energy Systems Catapult, who's going to discuss the need to deliver net zero ambitions through a coordinated place-based approach. The creation of local area energy plans delivering a whole system approach to decarbonisation and the role of combined authorities and mayors play, convening those spaces for strategic partners to come together. We've got Tina Gandhi, who's the Principal Environmental Strategy Officer for the Greater Manchester Combined Authorities Environment Team, that's a mouthful, who's going to discuss the role of retrofit as one of the pieces of the puzzle for keeping people warm and healthy at home across Greater Manchester, and also touching on how this fits into the Mayor's wider priorities on health and what that looks like in practice for the region. And we've got Ross Lowry, who's the Principal Manager for the Net Zero and Low Carbon Growth Team at North East Combined Authority, the region where we are at the moment, who's going to discuss leading the authority's low carbon growth and net zero work, making the transition to net zero a just and equitable one. Like Tina, Ross will discuss how this fits with the Mayor's wider priorities, and in particular, the commitment to tackle child poverty, with affordable energy being part of the complex reality for families experiencing poverty in the North East, and we heard so much about that yesterday afternoon. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andy, who is going to lead us off, and I think we're all going to come to the lectern, if that's right, Andy.
Right, good morning, everybody. Everybody okay? Yes? Good. Last time I was in this room, I was to see the music of Star Wars with my 5-year-old. So it's such an impressive space. It's even more impressive from this end than up there where we were sat. So pleasure to be here this morning and speak to you all. So I'm the business leader for Place at Energy Systems Catapult. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the Catapult, we're one of the catapults in the Catapult network, which was established by government and Innovate UK about a decade ago. So the Energy Systems Catapult, our mission is to accelerate net zero energy innovation. There's about 300 people work at the Catapult, based in Birmingham, but we work on projects all across the country on everything to do with energy innovation, from homes in the domestic setting, complex sites, places, which is the part of the business that I lead, and the whole system and networks angle as well. And we support innovators to bring forward products and services that can help tackle some of the challenges that we're facing. So I think, as has been mentioned, we take a whole system approach to energy and to achieving net zero on the energy system. That isn't just about the physical part of the system, but it's about the policy landscape, the financial mechanisms, and really importantly, the people that are at the end of the energy system. So that cuts through everything that we do, and hopefully that I'll touch on briefly with you this morning. So what's the point in taking a place-based approach to achieving net zero and a net zero energy system? Well, I think the Committee for Climate Change estimates that we need to spend something like 26 billion per year to 2050 if we're going to achieve net zero. That's a lot of money. Taking a place-based approach to delivering that has been estimated that it would save something like £137 billion and generate something like 430 billion in extra benefits. So social and environmental benefits beyond just delivering net zero on the system, so things like fuel poverty, air quality reduction. And that's really all about recognising that every place is different, has different characteristics, different opportunities and challenges, and that rather than take a sort of cookie-cutter approach nationally, we need to think about those intricacies and respond to them in a place-based way. So the numbers are there to back up that this is the right way to do this, and to think about the people and places at the end of this transition. But as well as the money is there to deliver some of this. We've just heard about the Warm Homes Plan and the Warm Homes Agency. Well, that's going to deliver. Yesterday we heard about the local power plan being published through GB Energy. We've been engaging with institutional investors, fund managers. They're keen, and there's an increasing impetus for them to invest in locally based projects around net zero, partly as a result of some recent changes to the Mansion House Accords, which influences how pension funds invest their money. We've got the National Wealth Fund, keen to invest in infrastructure. So some of the funding's there, but what we're not seeing is investment in projects at the sort of pace and scale that we need to see if we're going to deliver that 26 billion a year and see this transition happen in reality. And so where are those projects going to happen? They're going to happen in places, obviously. And how do we achieve that pace and scale that we need? Well, we need to start building portfolios of projects that are investable and that can be moved forward in the near term. And local government has a really strong role in that, and considering the role of place is critical. I think, cities, regions are a geography within which we can align resources and organise stakeholders and agree a plan of action and start to aggregate some of the scale that we need. The role of combined authorities, devolved government is critical in that, in terms of being able to set the policy landscape, being able to have that convening power to bring together cross-sector stakeholders around a vision and a shared plan for what needs to be delivered within that region, and also to really think effectively about how to pool national resources with regional resources and attract private sector interest around a scaled portfolio of projects. Now, what's really important is being able to understand what that needs to look like, and what does good look like, what's the size of the prize, and how does that align to local priorities, has been alluded to by Matt, I think. So I think probably around 2018, something like that, we started to see a lot of local areas start to declare climate emergencies and really put a marker down around a local ambition for net zero. And what we saw as the catapult was a lot of kind of then grasping for how do we actually deliver on that, and what does a plan look like in response to this ambition that we've got, whether it's net zero by 2050, by 2040, or even sooner than that. And that's where we developed the concept of local area energy planning to help places develop a really robust evidence base and plan to deliver a net zero energy system in their area. So that's what local area energy plans are all about. We refer to them as LEAP, although the eagle-eyed among you will realise that E and the A don't quite go the right way around in an acronym, but LEAP's a bit easy to say, so I'm going to roll with that. So that's where LEAP came from, and really it's a method to develop a whole energy system plan for an area that shows how to deliver net zero. So you can think of it as a sort of master plan, and it's a costed, integrated whole system energy plan across the whole system. So what we do in a LEAP is we look at the current energy system in a place, which might be a local authority area, it might be a region. We map that energy system and model it down to the building level as it is today, and then we look at lots of different possible futures on that system of how it might get to net zero by a target date. So we're looking at lots of different combinations of measures, whether that's retrofit measures, heat networks, EV charging points, generation, flexibility. And then we look across all those different scenarios and work with stakeholders to pick the right combinations of measures that both achieve a good cost delivery of net zero, but also align to local priorities. And so what you get out of a LEAP is a spatially presented plan, exactly what needs to happen where within the area, a costed plan, how much things are going to cost roughly, broken down by different types of measures and intervention, and a plan of when things need to happen. So are there some things that need to happen in the nearer term, some things that might be longer term goals that depend on decision points down the line. So you get from a LEAP kind of a list of projects prioritized and a pathway to show you how to deliver net zero in an area. And we're starting to see these sorts of plans make a difference. They're influencing network investment, they're helping areas move forward with projects more quickly, engage the private sector around scaled portfolios of investment. And you can really hone in on particular interventions that might align with local priorities. For example, where are there neighbourhoods that we know will need to transition to heat pumps? How does that align with fuel poverty in the area? And what looks deliverable in the near term and what might need longer term support? And how can they be packaged into portfolios of projects that can be invested in? I think we're at a point now where something like just over a third of local authorities are progressing a LEAP or have one. We haven't seen any clear policy from government that mandates this sort of approach. But at the Catapult, we've been working quite hard in the last 12 to 18 months to understand where the landscape is on this, what people feel have been the pros and cons, the challenges around LEAPs, and we're trying to respond to that by doing things like making it quicker, making it more affordable, making the outputs much more digital rather than a static report, because what we want to avoid is a sort of postcode lottery where we have some areas of the country that have really clear plans and understand what needs to happen and how they can communicate that for example, to the investment community, or use that information to put forward clear portfolios of projects to GB Energy or to the Warm Homes Agency. But some areas that don't have that evidence base and therefore maybe further behind. So, that's what LEAP is all about. What I would say as well is combined authorities and local government have been really critical to the journey we've been on with LEAP in the last maybe 5 years or so. I think Greater Manchester were one of the first regional authorities that worked with us to deliver LEAP with the 10 boroughs there. And we've seen, as I said, lots of traction since then across the country. So I think, just to summarise, it's really important that we start to break down this challenge and some of these really big numbers, like 26 billion per year, into a really clear and understandable set of things we know we need to do, what, where, when, how much and how many, and that organising stakeholders to do that around a regional scale, we think is the right way to approach it, and it enables the sort of scale we're talking about. It enables the right organisations to be brought together, and it enables resources to be pooled in the right way, for both private sector investment to be attracted, to identify the right and efficient use of public sector investment and also for regulatory investment when we think about what needs to happen on our energy networks, particularly as we move into a world where we're going to have, to use another acronym, RESP, Regional Energy Strategic Plans, where the energy networks will be planned at a more regional scale. Combined authority is going to be a really important part of that landscape and influencing those decisions for network investment through RESP as well. So, yes, I think that's all I want to say, really. Probably should say may the force be with you, because I've still got Star Wars in my mind. But yes, looking forward to the rest of the discussion this morning, and happy to take any questions later on. Thank you very much.
Work in Greater Manchester now.
Hello everyone. Hi, so I'm Tina Gandhi and I work for Greater Manchester Combined Authority. I firstly want to thank NEA for inviting me here, and also well done on 45 years, what an achievement. But also, importantly, I want to say well done to all of you for all the hard work that you do in tackling fuel poverty and for helping so many people and making such a difference to so many lives. Also, I'm conscious we've been here quite a bit now, so if you want to just have a wriggle or a shuffle, feel free to do so, and then just take a deep breath and just feel settled, you're here, and comfortable. So Greater Manchester, for those of you who don't know geographically what it consists of, it's 10 towns, which the map there can show you. I won't name them all, but Bolton, Manchester, a few of those that are in Greater Manchester. So we're the Combined Authority. My next slide just sets the scene of Greater Manchester. So we have around 1.2 million homes, 60% of which are owner-occupied, 20% are social rented, and 20% private rented. So we've got a lot of homes to work with. In this presentation, I'm just going to start with setting the scene around Greater Manchester, and then I'm going to talk about the project that I work on, which is Eco4Flex. And I'm conscious there's been a lot of bad press, but for us, we've done a good job and we're quite confident in that. And I know quite a few of you in this hall have also worked really hard on Eco4 and have done a great job as well. Okay, can you all hear me? Just making sure. Yes, fab, brilliant. Okay, so what are LAEPs? Bit of a mouthful, really. So we're quite proud of our LAEPs. So if I take you back to 2022, not too long ago, we're the first in the country to adopt them, which is basically a plan. It's evidence-based plans for each district, so all 10 of our districts, on how to decarbonise heat, transport and power, street level to system level pathways, so quite significant. And yeah, it's groundbreaking. It set out clear pathway to achieve carbon neutrality by 2038. So we've identified priority zones for retrofit, where to put heat pumps, heat networks, EV charging and solar. Some big targets set, very ambitious, to have 140,000 homes retrofitted within 5 years. So where, and you can see the rest of our targets, but where are we now exactly? So we've embedded these plans into our planning, into our investment and programme design across all the 10 districts. We've got priority zones, so delivery pipelines in place, heat and building programmes. So we're working really hard at this, and we are progressing. The next thing I want to talk about is our Live Well centres. I feel I've missed a slide there. No, I've not though. Okay, Live Well centres. Some of you may have heard of them. Who's heard of them? Put your hand up if you have. 1, 2. Okay, well, you will now after this presentation. So what are they? Okay, well, they're local hubs offering joined up everyday support. So I think we've heard about things like this in earlier sessions. So it's like a one-stop place for people to go to. In fact, there used to be old job centres. So what Andy Burnham, who's our front man, our lead guy, I want to say lead singer, but I don't know if he can sing. So Andy Burnham came up with this idea where all our major job centres have been converted into Live Well centres, where people can go for housing advice, job advice, keeping warm advice, everything, health, money. And what what do they achieve? Well, it's helping people when they're in crisis, poverty, poor health, even when they're not in crisis, trying to get them the help they need. And as well, it's very much linked to NHS and easing the pressure there. And how well are they running now? Well, we've got one in each of our 10 districts, and we set up 5 accelerator sites to begin with, and they've been used as exemplars for the others to take examples from. We invested 20 million in the first year, half of which went to voluntary sector groups, charities, because we, again, recognise that it's working with, on the ground level, working with communities that know what they're doing, that know what works, and who have that direct contact with residents. So some key stats: 2,000 people have been engaged with so far, 4,500 residents supported through the economic inactivity trailblazer, which is basically helping those that are out of work. Prevention demonstrator expected to deliver 10,000 fewer people in crisis. And again, you can see some of the stats that we're hoping to achieve. A bit about me. So I've been working in this sector for quite a long time now. I'm conscious of the grey hairs that might reflect on that. So 15 years experience in tackling fuel poverty across Greater Manchester. I've been at GMCA since 2014. I manage the Eco Flex scheme for Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and I manage an amazingly talented team that I'm super grateful for. Since 2021, I was very lucky that they did let me go part-time after a big fight. It was after I had the kids. So yeah, so I worked there part-time. Now, I do want to talk about Eco4 Flex scheme because I'm really proud of what we've achieved in Greater Manchester. Why am I proud of it? Well, we began with a concessionary framework. You know the phrase when they say, don't put all your eggs into one basket? I so recommend that. Do not do that, because that's where you get monopolies. So what we did was we procured a framework, a concessionary framework, which then helps to fund for our staffing costs. But with the framework, we've got 3 installers, which means that when there's a tough time or if one of them's struggling, the other 2 can come in and help. And we've really seen that work well. All our 3 installers have been brilliant, and a huge shout out to 0800 Repair. Are they in this room? They might be in the stalls. Well, they're here. If you've not met them, go to their stalls. They're brilliant. In fact, as one of our 3 installers, they had the fewest complaints. I think it was like 2. So they're brilliant. We're the first in the country to set up a bespoke portal for our scheme, which has since expanded, giving residents as well as installers really easy access to information and to referrals. We've developed a partnership with the NHS, and when I say a partnership, I mean we have got someone in NHS promoting our scheme, embedding our scheme within NHS pathways, which I'm so proud of, and I'll go into that in a bit. And I touched on complaints. We've had fewer than 1% complaints from residents who have used this scheme. So I hope Desnes are here and have heard that. Okay, so the retrofit portal, that's just a slide showing you what it looks like. It's quite user-friendly. Get funding, get advice, get going. Also, for those residents that aren't digitally savvy, we have had telephone numbers available and staff that have been able to go out and help people in their own homes. Another slide showing our portal where people can just put their postcode. Another good slide. And then here's our branding. We worked with our comms team on this, and it's used for all our projects. So we've got a real clear messaging, which is feel the benefit. And it's been used on buses, trams, websites, everywhere. So as I mentioned, we appointed 3 installers, Improve Easy, Next Energy Solutions, and 0800 Repair, and we split up the whole of Greater Manchester so they all got designated areas. Our figures are impressive. So we have spent around 27 million so far on installs, on retrofit measures on this scheme across the whole of Greater Manchester. Okay, I'm going to now dive into health. So some of you may know that in GM, our health funding has been devolved, which is really significant. It means we're responsible for our whole NHS budget, which in itself has its own challenges. Now, aside to that, the work that we've been doing on Eco4 with health has been separate, and we have funded it through our framework. So our framework has paid for an individual who's actually a pharmacist to sit in health, to work in health, NHS. She's got an NHS email address, and she has worked really hard to get our scheme through the pathways. So I'll go through that now. So some of the stuff that she has done includes working with 600 pharmacies, so they know about the scheme and can promote it to their customers that come through, as well as GP surgeries. She's worked with hundreds of GP surgeries to get the message of the scheme through and to get it through their pathway. And that is a good lookalike picture of her as well, by the way, but she designed it, so okay. Key achievements. So, as I mentioned, it's in the NHS pathway, which we're super proud of, and it wasn't easy to do overnight. And I know we've touched upon data briefly with the Minister, so we do have a data sharing agreement in place with NHS. I'd say the hardest struggle with that was working with information governance. But if anybody has questions later or wants tips on that, I'm happy to share. We're actually also working with data and a data sharing agreement with NEA currently as well. And I'm going to just now touch on, we've got some positive stories from residents. So we've got some case studies here, but rather than me talk now, because I've been talking for a bit, I'm hopefully going to play a video. So thank you so much.
We're proud to be working together with Bolton Council and the Greater Manchester Combined Authority delivering the Eco4 scheme to local residents. For us, it's more than just delivering the installs, it's being there for the residents, guiding them through the process and seeing the positive changes it brings to their lives.
We lived in this house since 1973, and the house at that time did not have central heating. And we've got to the point now where my husband's disabled with a wheelchair. He had a stroke in 2021 and he's just had another stroke, and our wonderful GP signed the certificate saying Rod shouldn't be in a cold home.
When Erica first contacted us and told us about her property and her husband's situation, we booked a retrofit assessment in to come out to the property and inspect it to see what possible measures we could install.
We had solar panels, loft insulation, 3 beautiful new storage heaters, and you also put the extractor fans in the kitchen and the bathroom, and they cleaned up afterwards and they did a fabulous job. I'm very, very grateful for Eco4. Since your solar panels have been on the roof, we're now over £200 in the black. So we're really, really grateful for everything you've done. It's been a wonderful scheme, and we know if we do sell this house, then it's better value now with everything that you've done, and you've been absolutely wonderful.
Okay, well, she was a lovely lady to work with for the case study. Right, so we're very open to sharing, we're very open to collaboration. So after this talk, if any of you want to work with us or share, do get in touch. We do have a framework that's available for you to benefit, to use. It's just been set up recently, in fact. The closing date for companies that wanted to join it, as in to be part of it, was end of October. So you can now, if you want to, go through the companies that are in the framework and pull out which companies you want to work with. Again, reach out to us if you want more information, but the sorts of things that you can get are, say, if you needed PAS 2035 rules, customer journey type companies, the list is there. And that's about it from me, so thank you, but I know we're going to have questions. So.
Thank you very much, Tina. I'm going to hand over to Ross now, who's similarly going to talk about the work that's going on in the North East Combined Authority.
Good morning, all. My name's Ross Lowry. I'm not going to talk about Greater Manchester. There we go. I'm Head of Clean Energy and Environment here at the North East Combined Authority. First of all, a quick thank you to Greater Manchester for bringing some great insight, enthusiasm and their weather to the North East. And also thank you to NEA for inviting me and bringing this extraordinary conference back to its spiritual home in the North East, although not Newcastle. Don't anyone say you've been to Newcastle. This is Gateshead, people. So I'm very briefly going to talk about a kind of a slightly different combined authority perspective, because we just haven't been at this game for quite as long as Greater Manchester. But I will talk to you about our journey so far. We have an elected mayor since May 2024, so we haven't been around that long, and we have a cabinet representing all 7 local authorities on that map, and we've set up a set of key regional priorities, missions as we call it, with a clever little play on the word home, which is nice for retrofit. I think what I wanted to convey really is that, as well as a sort of slightly boring corporate slide, is the retrofit piece, the warm homes piece, has been there from the very, very start. So even before we became a combined authority that covered the whole of the North East, and I joined before we became the North East Combined Authority, we were drafting a deeper devolution deal that created the Combined Authority. Now, yes, it was all about industrial and economic growth in the region and the importance of transport and all of those things. I put warm homes into that devolution deal, the deeper devolution deal. So when we were set up, we already had commitments around warm homes. We called it retrofit a lot then. We call it warm homes a lot now. But it was there in our kind of foundational documents to say we were going to take retrofit seriously. We were also going to do some very specific things, including working with government to develop strategy to prepare us for future devolution. So we then had an election, and we've got an elected mayor in Kim McGuinness. Chu's also very passionate about the subject. So if you look at the mayor's manifesto, you'll see an overarching mission around improving people's lives, which you'd expect. But she also talks an awful lot about child poverty, and I will touch on that in this presentation. But also improving standards and creating good jobs. And a sort of a general theme throughout all of those things is tackling fuel poverty. So we had the kind of the combined authority mandate, and then we had the mayoral mandate, so we were good to go. But the challenge is really, really profound in the North East. And so every region has its own challenges. I know that well. But if I can briefly talk about the North East. So we have the lowest take-home pay of any English region. We have the highest cost of retrofit of any English region. So those two things combined make it very, very difficult to deliver retrofit in a meaningful way. We're also, we might not be the wettest English region, but I think we're the coldest English region as well. So there are a lot of sort of factors that make retrofit in the North East look a little bit different to retrofit in the Southwest or retrofit in the Southeast. Now, I'm not saying it's any, I am saying it's harder actually, but I will recognise that there are challenges across the country. Nobody's got it easy. But if anyone asks a question, why would you need a regional approach to retrofit? I think the answer's there. You need a regional approach because regions face different challenges. So for us, it is clearly important, and hence we're prioritising action on it. But I also wanted to talk about child poverty because if the mayor was here, she would. So it's a key priority for Kim McGuinness, and also I think for us, we just recognise that there's an awful lot of kind of cross-cutting themes and work between child poverty and fuel poverty. With the Mayor's backing, we've had an awful lot of impetus around tackling child poverty. We've set up a task force and an action plan. And within that action plan, my team contributes to the housing strand of the action plan, because we recognise that there's a really strong link between child poverty and fuel poverty. So over 3/4 of children living in the North East growing up in poverty live in rental accommodation, for example. Now, we know those properties are likely, or more likely, to be cold, damp and insulated. So there's a clear crossover. I probably don't need to kind of highlight that to you people in this room, but I guess having identified the problem, the real question is, well, what are you going to do about it? How do you bring those two agendas together? Because we're doing an awful lot of work with families, trying to meet them where they are and advise them in terms of the child poverty drivers. Well, clearly, household energy bills are a big part of that. So we've also committed our own spend. I think this is really important. I'm not going to do audience participation, don't worry, but I'll ask the rhetorical question. How much money do you think the government gives us to deliver retrofit in the North East right now to the combined authority? The answer is zero. So we spend our own money on this. So we've committed investment fund that people are probably more familiar with spending on infrastructure projects, innovation, etc. We're spending our own money on delivering retrofit in the region right now because it's so important. So we committed over £4 million to 2.3 million towards a one-stop shop, which most people are familiar with the concept. So I'll not labour that. But the idea being that we get out there to households, we focus on fuel-poor families and in the private rented sector. And I think the important thing, a couple of important things to highlight with what we're doing with North East Warm Homes. One is the partnership element of it. So this is the Combined Authority working in partnership with delivery organisations. Really delighted to be working with Groundwork, who I noticed in the foyer, and also Community Action Northumberland in terms of the actual delivery across the region, as well as working closely with local authorities. But also, I think it's important. It's important to highlight that we're all, yes, we have an online presence, and that's really important. But we also have telephone advice and in-person advice, and that's been really critical to getting to those hard-to-reach families and those tough-to-treat homes. And I think, probably with Warm Homes above most of our missions, usually, you'll find me talking about economic development and the economic success of the region. We do that less, I suppose, with Warm Homes stuff, but actually there's a really important link in terms of both green jobs in the region, and we want to create 25,000 new green jobs. Many of them will be in the retrofit space. But also in terms of, if we were talking about a different industry, we'd be talking about leverage. We'd be talking about using combined authority funding to leverage external funding for outcomes. Well, that's what we do with our £2.3 million, is we give advice to householders to leverage other funding to actually do the implementation. So I think it's important to recognise that that's we want to get as much money flowing into the North East to pay for retrofit as we possibly can, and this is how we do it. That's what we tell our financial directors anyway, and it seems to work, so that's good. I mentioned joining up delivery, so we have a Warm Homes unit and we have a child poverty reduction unit, and they don't sit in isolation. We work together, both in terms of delivering that one-stop shop, but also with some of the, and I'll not go into the detail of it, but some of the initiatives under the child poverty reduction units around getting advice and support through to new families. Well, actually, we can use that mechanism to get fuel poverty advice to those same families. I did want to mention Bloomberg Philanthropy's innovation team, just because we talk a lot. I think everyone will end up talking a lot, and I think we're all forgiven for doing this. We talk about money, we talk about how can we get more money, and it's almost like, kind of rate ourselves on how much money we've spent on this stuff. But actually, again, if we were looking at any other industry, we'd be looking at innovation. We'd be looking at how can we do this better. with what we've got. So I was really, really pleased that we've successfully bid for funding through Bloomberg Philanthropies to look at how we can bring innovation to this policy area. So now we have, and they've just joined us, we have 3 people working in an innovation unit separate to our teams, but working with our teams, looking at child poverty, looking at fuel poverty, and looking at the interlinkages. And how do we use data and social innovation to do things differently? And I think that, you won't see results from that in the next year, but you will see results from that in the next 5 years in terms of what we do and how we do it. I think it's really, really important. It also means the rest of the world is watching the North East when it comes to fuel poverty, to warm homes and to retrofit, because it's a global network and will be feeding back to mayors across the world. Devolution. Really, really pleased to see the Warm Homes plan. We've got a bit of work to do now to align what we're doing with the outcomes set out in that plan. We're also, I mentioned other agendas, we're also soon to release a Mayor's Plan for Green Jobs, and that's doubling the number of green jobs from currently about 25,000 to 50,000 by 2035. As I mentioned, retrofit is, I mean, offshore wind will play a significant role in that, and as will heat networks. But also retrofit will too. So those green jobs will look like installers fitting heat pumps and solar panels, etc. So it's part of our economic success story as well for the region, is creating green jobs. We're absolutely being very vocal with government. I'll do it in this room. We want to get on with devolution. I don't want to wait till 2028. I don't want to wait till 2030. I want it to happen this year, and we're pushing quite hard. We want devolution funding to flow to the region because we think there are sort of regional disparities, there are regional challenges that we need regional funding to tackle. So we are pushing really hard for devolution, but we're also we're not standing still whilst asking for that funding. We're setting out a regional strategy backed by a Warm Homes task force that some of you in this room will have heard about, and some of you may be on. A fantastic initiative to say, look, this is not a North East Combined Authority challenge, this is a North East challenge, and it requires partnership approach. So yes, we're developing a strategy, but it's not a Combined Authority strategy, it's a regional strategy. That will happen this year, and we'll be in a really strong position next year to kind of crack on with devolved retrofit, hence pushing for the funding. I think I'll leave it there, but I'm really happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Super, thank you, Ross, and thanks to all the panelists. I am going to take questions from the floor in a second, so please, if you have any, think of them, get your hands up. But before I do, I want to ask a question for each of you. We've got a new Warm Homes plan, fuel poverty strategy, a child poverty strategy, a 10-year health plan, a local power plan. We've got the system operator doing RESPs and regional planning. But in terms of our agenda and all those things, what do you think is the biggest opportunity for this year ahead in terms of all those national things coming together? Andy, I'm going to be mean and start with you.
That's a big question, isn't it? Can you hear me? Yep. I mean, I think it's an interesting time because a lot of this is still shaking out. Yesterday, local power plan and just the Warm Homes plans just come out. We're just seeing the transitional RESPs published in the last couple of weeks. It's going to be a couple of years till we see the full RESPs released. So it sort of feels to me like we're in a sort of not limbo as such, but there's definitely a period of time now where we're waiting to see how things settle and exactly how all of these things play with each other, because you'd expect there to be some interaction between the local power plan and the Warm Homes Agency, for example, and to understand how those things interrelate. So, in terms of where the opportunity is, I think that the time is now to try and create some clarity within regions and places around what is it we want to make happen here, which I think both of my colleagues have described on the panel here, is, try and understand the priorities that exist locally, the things that you want to see delivered locally, get the narrative clear around them, and understand how they might align into things like the Warm Homes Plan and local power plan, so that probably in the next 12, 18 months, you're really ready to respond to them, and to have that, you know, that kind of evidence base ready to go. That would be my thoughts on that.
Super, thank you. Tina, what about from the Manchester perspective?
Well, immediately when you asked the question, my thought was health, and I think that's because I'm quite passionate about it, and we've worked really hard to embed ourselves within NHS. So I really think now is the time, and NHS are really aware of this. They're so aware of the financial benefit of retrofit to them. So they now know of the figures that when you retrofit a home, the actual positive impact it has on their patients, that it reduces illnesses long-term and prevention as well. So I think, you know, whatever area you work at, whether it's sort of grassroots, ground level, direct contact with residents, or more at a strategic level, try and tap into health, whether it be health people you come across or whatever, try and open those doors, have those conversations.
Absolutely, you couldn't agree more on the health aspect. And Ross,
yeah,
what about
so
this region?
Which is the most important plan? It's been a kind of strategy overload at the moment, hasn't it? I think I am, other people will be too, just exhausted with the number of plans that come through every single week. I'm bored of briefing. You know, I'm struggling to read them all. I think the most important plan will be the plan that we deliver in the North East for us, because I think the risk is that we must focus on delivery, because the risk is that we just wait, because we read the plans and we say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't do a regional advice service because there might be a national one, or maybe we shouldn't do regional loans because there might be a national one, maybe we shouldn't do any intervention at all because it might happen in a different plan. We just need to crack on and then, you know, evolve as we go.
Super, opportunity for action. Love it. Any questions from the audience for the panellists? Sorry, I'm struggling to see. Is there a lady in the centre, the third or fourth row? Oh.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Back there, and then, yeah, there's going to be a lady. So if you go first, and then we'll have one down here as well.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. You go ahead.
Kenneth Campbell from the Energy Efficiency Association. Ross, you said when we were talking that you didn't get any central government funding at all. Does that mean that you haven't engaged with the Warm Homes local grants? And if not, why not? What is the barrier there, and what is the thinking? Because if the government's delivering the Warm Homes plan through the Warm Homes local grant, is there going to be a problem with other local authorities and other combined authorities?
So the current setup in the northeast of England is those Warm Homes grants are directly administered to local authorities. So the combined authority doesn't currently have a role in delivery of Warm Homes local grants, nor social housing. I think that if you asked a Manchester colleague, the answer is very different. So that is actually the devolution journey, looks like devolution of those funding. I will say, though, that is really, really important, and it's a wider point about devolution, but we must continually return back to it. It must never be about taking away funding or powers or responsibilities from local authorities. Devolution is actually about devolving powers, responsibilities and funding from a national government down to a regional level. So, you know, when we talk about Warm Homes local grants, it isn't about us stepping into LA space, it's about us stepping into national government space.
Thanks, Mr.
Yeah, so as Ross was pointing out, yes, very different picture at Greater Manchester Combined Authority. The local grant money has been devolved, so we've been working quite hard. We've set up a whole team. We've got technical surveyors in place. We've got caseworkers in place. I think we're already go as it stands. So, yeah, okay, thanks.
Super, and there's a question in the front.
Network group. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on the unstable political climate of the UK. So obviously we've spoken to the moon and back about how we have to work together, local authorities, organisations, and I wonder, with the increase of certain political voices who are trying to move us away from like net zero, decarbonisation, how will that make our work more difficult in certain regions where those influences become stronger?
Maybe a difficult question for the officials on the panel to answer.
Sorry.
But I'll pass over to Andy first. But if you could...
It's a difficult question in some senses, but it's a really valid one, isn't it? I think my views, which probably has never changed, but maybe is sort of more important now for the reasons you've said, is we need to, we'll get this done by making it feel more exciting and better than what we've already got, not by banging the drum about why it needs to happen for the environment or, for other reasons. I mean, that was that video that that Tina showed earlier, the lady in the house there. She was really excited about that because it meant what it meant for a husband and had a warm home, and that it was a real personal story. And so I think it's finding ways and reasons like that to champion our agenda, whether it's it's convenience or the health impacts, or bill reduction, or an electric car is nicer to drive, or whatever it is. I think it's thinking about those narratives and why what we're trying to do is just better, that we really need to focus on. Would be my answer to that.
And I'm really happy to it's an excellent question, and we shouldn't shy away from either asking it or as a combined authority, even in an apolitical way, answering it. So it's clear that there appears to be an unstable political environment at a national level. That's fine. But I think, as Andrew says, we will just focus on the things that are hard to disagree with. So, who would disagree with warmer homes? Who would disagree with good jobs? Yep. Who would disagree with better health outcomes? That's what we will focus on. And I think the other thing to say is, and I totally understand the premise of the question, but we do have stable political leadership in the North East. We've had an elected mayor who will be in post for the next 2.5 years with a mandate to deliver on this stuff. So the next time we'll ask ourselves that question again will be in 2.5 years' time.
Tina?
I agree with both of those comments, really valid. And I always think of that saying, where there's a will, there's a way. And with some of these hurdles, there's always a way around. And, we just need to figure those out and then crack on. So, yeah.
Absolutely. It's very difficult for anyone to disagree with healthier people, warmer homes, cheaper energy. Any more questions from the floor? Is there one at the back?
Thank you. Hi, Kerry Batchelder, South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority retrofit lead. So my question is for Ross and Tina. So the Warm Homes Plan places a lot more responsibility for retrofit delivery and compliance on our local authorities. And what is the capacity of the teams like in your local authorities, and how, as combined authorities, can we best support them?
Who wants to go first? Tina?
I can go first. So obviously with the closure of Eco4 Flex, we've got a team. So that team can then hopefully continue with the Warm Homes Plan work. We have got capacity, and what we've found is if we haven't got capacity, if there's funding, then we can make that capacity. The issue is if there is no funding, as always with all projects and all schemes.
Super. Ross?
I think we're in a very different place. In fact, we're a very similar place to South Yorkshire, I suspect, Combined Authority, in terms of we're one of the kind of emerging combined authorities that are in that kind of just entering the top table when it comes to devolution with a integrated settlement, etc. It's a real problem. Our capacity within the combined authority, fantastic individuals they are. It's 2 to 3 people. I borrow one. One works part-time. It's a real struggle. And I think that's why I raised the point around devolution of funding. It's not all about funding, but we absolutely need that kind of transitional and capacity building funding to get to the stage where Manchester is and West Midlands are. You can't go from kind of 0 to 100 miles an hour without going through the gears. And that's what we need to step through.
Absolutely. Huge amounts of responsibility being placed at the feet of local authorities and mayoral authorities through enforcing regulations and actually doing the work as well, and need the capacity to actually deliver it. I think there's a question down here, isn't there?
Hello, I'm Carol Botton from Gateshead Council, and my question sort of leads on from the previous one, actually, and is specifically for Ross. You talked about your regional strategy that you're developing, which is great, but is that going to be backed up by a regional local energy plan that Andy was telling us about, and how are you supporting and enabling the local authorities in your patch to get those plans in place that can be built into a regional plan? Because it seems to me that that is one of the keys to unlocking everything.
Ross?
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Leaps, yes. A couple of things. So firstly, we've set up a North East Strategic Energy Board, which brings all of the major generators, transmitters, distributors, users together at a sort of regional strategy level, not in any way intending to do the job of excellent regional partners like Northern Power Grid. It's to tackle the longer term opportunities, challenges, threats, etc., associated with our energy system. And it also means that we are in a sort of better position to play into things like RESPs and other structures like that. I think on leaps, I think there are I think there are different approaches available, put it that way. So, you know, there are lots of different approaches, even if you call it a leap, never mind different approaches to energy planning that aren't called leaps. So, and we have a kind of a fiercely independent set of local authorities who will have their own views on how to deliver this stuff. So actually we're there with our limited capacity. We're not there to step in on the region and say, all right, guys, you're all doing a leap like this. We're there to support energy planning, energy strategy. I think there's a real question, though, by the way, and I'm not dodging it, around should we have a consistent regional system of energy planning? We haven't pushed that point yet. The first step for us, actually, and we'll do it this year, is to understand the energy constraint in the region. Because when we were north of Tyne Combined Authority, we did a really good study around energy constraint and how it was constraining economic growth. And that was also in relation to power, to heat, etc., to heat networks, etc. We haven't got that picture for the whole region, including Gateshead. So we'll commission that, and it will form part of, this is going to be acronym overload, but it will form part of the spatial development strategy. Because actually there's combined authorities are taking on a spatial development role, and how could you not see energy systems, heat networks, and approaches to retrofit as part of a kind of a wider regional spatial plan? So that's where we'll bolt in, rather than at the sort of leap level. We'll go in at regional spatial strategy level.
Thanks, Ross. I think that's all we got time for, and I can't see any more hands. But I will end on one bit of reflection from me, is that it doesn't matter where we live. There's mayors and local leaders with priorities, but we've got some fantastic local leadership here and elsewhere with priorities that really align with this agenda, whether it be on the health side or the child poverty side. We've got lots of things coming together at the national level which can support local level delivery. And I think the key thing for me is something that Ross said: we need to get on with it. Less strategies, more doing at this point, and hopefully this year ahead can be one where we can push on, not just in the North East, not just in Manchester, but in the mayoral authorities, in local authorities all across the country. So it's my job now to send you off for your break. Ask you to come back here at midday for the final session, or the final group of sessions, which is a set of 3, and culminates on recognition for some of the esteemed colleagues in the room. So please do stick around for that, and look forward to seeing you for that final bit. Thank you very much.